I'm gonna echo your I'm gonna echo your sentiments. I hope everybody's home is safe, and I know you guys been through a lot in Florida, but even last week I was texting Michael just to make sure at least he was okay. But anyway, I'm happy. I'm very excited to be here. And one of the reasons I'm here is not just because I've been asked to be a speaker. I really care about each of your journeys, and you might feel like, well, what does she know? She doesn't know me. But I identify as Latina. I come from a first-gen low-income background, and despite all the amazing places and roles I have played in my career, I continue to navigate this as the first one, as the only one, and I just shared all this knowledge from that point of view. So I hope that that brings some level of comfort as it relates to today's event. So that said, I'm gonna get started and share my screen. Raquel, can you give me a thumbs up if you see my full screen or, okay, perfect. So today we're gonna talk about getting great letters of recommendation, not just a regular letters of recommendation. And we're gonna base our presentation on that. But before, I already anticipated introducing myself, but more formally, I'm the Associate Vice Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the School of Arts and Sciences in Penn. And here is my email, but of course we can plug it in the chat box and throughout the chat. So, but before we jump into the letters of recommendation, we're going to talk a little bit about Penn. This is a shameless plug. And this is just to give you an idea of how big our institution is and how would it take probably a little effort and also strategic ways to really navigate all we have to offer. And I'll give you some hints about that. So the University of Pennsylvania has a total of 12 schools. So that's a lot of schools that offer a different degrees. And my school particularly is the School of Arts and Sciences, and that's where I will focus my information. But we have definitely a lot to offer. I'm particularly representing the School of Arts and Science. From now on, I'm going to call it SAS, Graduate Division, which has about 32 graduate groups and also could include about 12 interdisciplinary certificate programs. That means that when you enroll in one program, you're not stuck just with that. You definitely have some ability to explore and expand on your interests beyond the particular graduate group you're enrolled into. And just to give you a quick snapshot, and this is where we have QR codes, there will be plenty of them. This is where I would love to stay connected with you because there's always a lot of programming that I would love to invite you to. And that includes actually this weekend, we just had our in-person visitation program called Deep in STEM. And actually, five McNair scholars from UCF were on campus just yesterday. And Kevin, who's here, already came back to this presentation. So this is the kind of programming I want to invite you to. So as it relates to the natural sciences, we have a lot to offer that goes all the way from applied math to biology, chemistry, math, linguistics, psychology. And for each graduate program that we also have research centers that are connected to our graduate program. So this is just a quick snapshot about which programs offer PhDs, doctoral programs, or even master's degrees. Oh, sorry about that. And just going even a little deeper, and I'm only going to do this for some of the natural sciences departments. This is just an example of why you need to navigate. Don't get fooled by my previous slide where I just say biology and chemistry or physics. There's a lot to navigate as it relates to specific research fields that are conducted under each graduate group. So I hope that by just this quick snapshot, your eyes can hopefully connect with some of the topics that you might be interested now or maybe in the future. But again, this is not a comprehensive slide because otherwise it will be too small. I will also highlight that we have a lot of degrees in the humanities, and that goes from Africana studies to art and archaeology to history, Spanish and Portuguese. So we really have a lot of information or graduate degrees to offer, as well as in the social sciences that go all the way to anthropology, criminology, economics, political science, sociology. So again, just a quick snapshot, but I can make sure that Raquel and Ria has these electronic versions of this flyer to share with you. So why consider Penn? We have, like I mentioned, a network of 12 professional schools where you will have access to top research facilities as well as very prestigious scholars. We have this nice combination of a traditional campus in the middle of a city. And like many other schools offering doctoral programs, we have generous PhD funding packages that includes medical and dental benefits. And beyond that, I also want to make sure that you are aware that this is not just about the research. This is not just about how prestigious a faculty member can be or the university can be, but I want to put in your mind the idea that you need support while you are in graduate school. And for that particular thought, I'm gonna highlight the Graduate Student Center. At Penn, the Graduate Student Center does so much for our graduate students. And I'm just gonna highlight a few of the things that they do. They organize a lot of activities, and some of them are around affinity groups such as the La Casa Latina, the LGBT Center, the MACU Center, Pan Women's Center, Pan Asian American. I'm not going to name them all, but this is just for you to have an idea that it's not just, you're just not coming here to do your research, but also there are other physical spaces that are dedicated to take care of your individual needs and also to make sure that you're connected to your multiple identities and the other areas of your life that are important to you. Similarly, we also have a lot of resources focused on academic and professional development. And we have a full office for career services. We have the Center for Teaching and Learning. We have an extraordinary network of libraries. And also we have the Wayne Garden Center, which focuses on supporting students with their integration into campus, among many other things. Also, another very important aspect of your graduate journey, if you choose to do one, is making sure you have time to decompress and have fun. So we have offices dedicated to campus recreation, Penn athletics, public health and well-being, and student health and counseling, and also making sure that our campus stay pretty safe. So we have a lot of that to offer. And community engagement is not less important. We have lots of graduate student leadership. We have our graduate student government. We have the Penn Life Arts, which brings a lot of amazing shows. And we have the Penn Art Museum, which all of our members have free access to, and it's just extraordinary. So why else consider Penn? One is location. If you never have left Florida or don't know much about the state of Pennsylvania, here is a little map of Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia is at the very edge on the east coast of the state and closely connecting to New Jersey and very close to Washington, D.C. and New York City, just about an hour away of New York City, probably. Yeah, probably a little more, 2 hours. But you can easily access this corridor via public transport. Just zooming in on the downtown Philly, the University of Pennsylvania is located where we call University City, and we have downtown Philadelphia in here, and we have some very there's a lot of history surrounding the city of Philadelphia. So it's really nice to be able to have a lot of this history, museums, the zoo, and so many other things very, very close to our campus. And Philly, more generally speaking, has a lot to offer. Whether you're a foodie and you are interested in looking for or figuring it out where is the best Philly cheesesteak in town, these are two very popular locations. Every person will tell you whether which one is their favorite or if none of these are their favorite, but that's for you to find out if you ever find yourself in Philadelphia. We have this is City Hall and many historic sites. We have great sports teams and some other monuments and places that people just love to visit. We have the Rocky Stairs. If you ever been familiar with the movie Rocky or any of their series, this is a very famous location for that movie. So just a little bit of pop culture. So if you were interested to connect with Penn or navigate Penn, I'm just going to give you a few highlights in here. And that is it. Where do we get started? Okay. So the truth is that there's plenty of starting points. You can either apply for our let me start my laser. You can apply to pursue summer research experiences with us. And many of our programs are connected to the Leadership Alliance. And the Leadership Alliance is an organization that has a conglomerate of Research One universities, and we provide research opportunities for students like you. The cool thing about the Leadership Alliance is that, and I hope you're making note of this because the application will open soon in November, is that it's one application. You can apply to 3 different schools, and from each of those schools, you can choose your research of interest. So there's a lot packed in that application. And in addition to that, at the very end of that summer research experience, you get to go to a national conference called the Leadership Alliance National Symposium, which is super fun. There's so much going on at that conference, and it's just plainly speaking a celebration of undergraduate student research. Also, another way to connect with Penn is via the visitation programs. And I just mentioned earlier Deep in STEM. For Deep in STEM, 5 of the STEM schools at Penn come together to invite scholars from different disciplines, all expenses paid for that weekend. And I cannot see everybody who is in this call, but I know that Kevin Villatoro is here and he just came back from Philly last night. So we also host campus visits, and that means that, you know, um, we either go to your campus or other student groups from other universities also visit us. And there are plenty of networking opportunities, and that could be via virtual events such as this one that is hosted by UCF. But also during the summer, I host a summer virtual series when I do 6 different, very distinct sections focus on your professional development. And you also can find us at the national conferences that typically happen in the fall. Regional graduate fairs. Unfortunately, I cannot be at the UCF campus later this week, but we're connected, so that's what matters, and much more. So, before we go into the letters of recommendation, I want to give you some hacks, and I hope that you pull your cell phone at this point to take some pictures of some of the slides that I'm going to show you, because thinking of summer programs or thinking about graduate schools could be a very, very overwhelming process because, as you will know, even all of us professionals that are attending this graduate first series, we're all over the place and we are very different institutions. So how do you find the right one for you? So one thing I would say is that before you apply to any program, organize your school research. And how do you do that? You just open a Google Doc, you do this on a piece of paper, you do this on Excel, Word, whatever strikes your fancy. And you're gonna first probably create a couple of columns that might indicate how do you learn about the school the first time, right? It could be that you on your own, you landed on a website. It could be that on your own, you first met a grad student from a particular institution. The bottom line is that no matter where the source is, I think it's important that if you explore first the grad school website, also make sure that you explore other links or other spaces that could give you a bigger, broader, more vision or way to look at an institution from multiple points of views. And I think this is important so that you get a fuller picture. So this is just again one guidance. You don't have to do this way, but hopefully this could help you organize how you are learning about institutions and making sure that you can compare them in a fair way. Don't discard one institutions because like, oh, I didn't saw this. Making sure that if you started at the department website, then make sure you go back to the grad school website. The second hack I will tell you, first I told you about organizing your choices. Now I'm going to talking about building your ideal school or ideal summer program. And for some of you, this doesn't have to be your options. What I hope is that in this top row, when you build this particular table, that you put the things that are most important to you. For some of you, research might be the most important. For those, some of you, maybe location is the most important, or the student resources, depending on who you are and what are your needs. So this can help you prioritize the type of schools from the previous table, right? Which school has all these things that are super important to you, and you can rank them in any way you want. You can do 1 to 5, 1 to 3, ABC, stars, chocolates, whatever you you want to rank them with. It's important that you keep it consistent so that you don't get confused or overwhelmed because it could easily happen. So the ideal graduate program is defined by your training goals, your personal needs, your values and resources that are important to you. Because if you talk to your friends, their order of priorities can be a little different. But I think and I hope that once you start exploring the different kind of programs, you are super clear about, you can strike a balance between, for example, the research and the location, right? Or maybe the research and the student resources. What if you need a very strong disabilities office? What if you need a program that can truly understand medical needs or some other type of accommodation? So you really, really need to, and I hope that this makes you think about it. You don't have to do it specifically this way. So if I were to give you a take-home message about this first part of the presentation is that it is very important to organize your interests. Also, it's important that to some extent you build your ideal graduate program, that you are able to prioritize up options, track your progress as it relates to application processes. And I'm sure you got a session on this at some point in this series, but also that you are in good shape to support your recommenders. And we're going to go into this into the next session. I think we're good on time for now. So we're going to talk about pro tips for obtaining glowing letters of recommendation. And why do I say glowing, strong, good? Why do I spend extra time with all these descriptives? It's because a lot of people will write you a letter, but is it the letter that is really going to support you and make you this help you, get the success that you're looking for. So just as a quick, if you can use your emojis or whatnot, can you share with me how many of you have already requested letters of recommendation or have some experience? Any any raising hands, a little heart, a little thumbs up? I just want to have an idea. Okay, some of you have this experience. I also acknowledge that maybe some of you are on your phones and it's hard to find the button. But let's say that this is your first time. I hope that to give you enough information so that you can navigate this either for the first time or if you have done it in the past, how to make this process even better. All right. Oops. Okay. So I'm gonna skip the icebreaker just because of where I forgot to delete this. So the topics that I'm gonna cover in this part of the presentation is letting you know what is the role of a letter of recommendation, who should write the letter and why. Also, we're gonna share a little bit about the timeline to requesting those letters, tips on how to request that good or glowing letters of recommendation, and a take-home message at the end. So, how are these letters used? Pretty much a letter of recommendation complements the rest of your materials. Most applications, whether they're for a summer program or a graduate school, you will have to submit a statement, transcripts, letters of recommendations, and a CV or a resume. So there will be multiple parts to your application, but this is meant to be a complement of all the things you have talked about and that you're supplying. And what it really does is to help us gain perspective of you as an applicant from a professional's point of view. And if I were to be more specific, what we're looking for is a get peer-to-peer perspective, faculty to faculty. And I'm going to go in a minute, I will expand on this, but just know that we want our faculty from your institutions and our institutions to have some sort of connection via this letter. So who reads these letters or these applications? Typically faculty members involved in a program, especially those that are involved in admissions committees. Sometimes it could be staff members, just like myself, an academic dean or some admissions officer, that we are also very aware of all of the applications. And the impact of a letter of recommendation is it could vary depending on their consistency, depth, and level of support. So you just don't want to have a letter for the sake of having a letter. You want a letter that will be consistent and that will show incredible amount of support and also knowledge about who you are and why you're applying to this particular program. So that means that we are looking for a very specific type of content. We want those recommenders to talk about your research experiences. So if you're applying to be a researcher, we want to hear about the research experiences. And don't worry if this is going to be your first time applying to a summer program. That means you don't have research yet, and it's okay, right? In that case, we hope to hear more about your academic progress and or some of your achievements. We want to hear about your goals and potential, and also about your professional and even your personal journey. And all of these things are important because whether you already have research experience or not yet, I think when someone is able to speak about not only if you're a good student in the classroom, but it's like, oh, the student really is very curious, they're trying to learn, they're trying to navigate what it's research for the first time. They probably come from first generation backgrounds and they haven't been exposed, or they transfer from community college, and now it's when this all of these opportunities are coming presenting themselves, learning about who you are and where you are in your journey is super important and super helpful. So, who should write the letter and why? I started mentioning this earlier, and my first focus will be to tell you that we want faculty to write these letters. And why faculty? It is likely, or it's almost like this is a general understanding within the community in higher ed that when you reach a faculty level, whether you're assistant professor, associate professor, full professor, you have gone through an amount of training and rigor that really qualifies you to understand what it takes for someone in your position to get into doing research. And again, it's not about whether you have a lot of research experiences or not, but who you are and are you disciplined? Are you organized? Are you working hard? And those kind of things, when the faculty has that perspective, is very helpful. Other people that could write letters is academic faculty or lecturers, program directors. It could be your McNair program director, LSAM, Mark. There's so many STEM pathway programs, and they each will have their directors and they can speak. This is their job, right? They understand what it takes to take undergrads into this type of experiences. So they often can speak of who you are, your grit, your hardworking experiences, and they can be surface really good letters. And also, let's say that you have done some other types of internships that connect to some extent to the program you're applying to, they can also write letters. Another thing I want to say, I'm going to go back to letters, is that let's say that you already have been into summer research experiences and you only get to connect with the faculty member at the beginning of the program and then at the end. So you really didn't see this person much. And you might feel a little nervous about, oh my God, I don't know if this person really knows me. How could they possibly write me a good letter of recommendation? So here's a hack. Likely you work more closely with a graduate student or a postdoc. I mean, typically somebody more senior in the lab would have helped you during that experience. They are not necessarily faculty, so they can write a letter, but they don't have those years of experience to really elevate that letter of recommendation. So what you can do in this instance is suggest and manage the following thing. You can ask that faculty member to collaborate with that graduate student or that postdoc that you work closest with. That way, that person you work closer to can write a small paragraph where they speak about your demeanor, your hard work, and you like everything that you did, and that way it can be signed off by the faculty. So this is something that happens quite often, is very valid, and that's for you to think about and to manage this type of collaboration. So now I know I'm going fast, but don't worry, we're gonna have time for questions and answers at the end. So I hope you're writing them down or you can include them in the chat and to make sure that we don't forget about them. So when should you request a letter of recommendation? This is something that a slide that I typically use during the summer, and that's why it includes the summer portion of it. But let's say that you're applying to graduate school this fall. Ideally, you will have started working on those letters of recommendation in the summer, but there's no particular deadline on when you should have started. What matters is that you do something different today. So typically you apply, applications will open between September and December for graduate school, graduate programs, or even from November to February for summer programs. So pretty much earlier in the summer, you should have thought about networking with schools or identifying the research opportunities and narrowing down closer to the fall, the list of schools and maybe the names of the people that you wanted to recommend you, but also being highly aware of the deadlines and requirements. Um, Probably by later in the fall, you want to be following up with recommenders, proofreading your applications, in making sure that all of your responses are clear and whatnot, because what happens later in December is that you are invited for interviews and you get to make some choices. So when do you really start requesting letters of recommendation? It could be any time during this process. And if you have not started, you're still fine. Application deadlines, the first one is likely to be by December 1st for graduate programs. And if you're applying to summer programs, the deadlines will be closer to January or February. So I'm trying to be inclusive of all the different types of letters you might be requesting. So you might already have requested it, and that's fine. But what I'm going to talk about next is what if you already started that process? What if you did not get the chance to ask for a good letter of recommendation? You still have time to really manage this progress. And the other thing I want to say is that it is likely that you already have requested letters, and those letters help you get into a particular program. Please don't get just comfortable that that letter is already the winner letter for everything else you will apply to. There is still a chance that that letter can still grow, can still evolve, can still get stronger. And for that reason, I really hope that some of the etiquettes that I will present next could help you manage that process so that those letters keep improving. And when you're thinking of requesting a letter, I want you to think of that someone who can articulate a narrative that summarizes your skill set, your personal professional experiences, and career goals. If they can only talk about one of these things, only one, then you need to make sure they know about the others, okay? So, how do you go at requesting a good letter of recommendation? You first have to evaluate your interactions with this recommender, especially thinking about how much they know about you, your interests, and your professional goals. If they just know that you want to go to grad school and you're doing research, that sounds good, but that's not enough, right? And the other, so that means that you need to make sure that you create more opportunities to interact with them. If you think you interact with them just in class and then they never see you, their letter is likely to be a little more generic. But if you attend office hours or if you create some time to talk to them about your letters, and they might be able to really craft them in a more personalized way. So that means that you should set up a time for a virtual call or to go to their office hours and facilitate, you know, that opportunity for them to get to know about everything they should know about you. And also, you should provide context for the application that you are applying to, right? They need to know that they need to know the distinction between you're applying to summer programs versus a different type of internship versus graduate school. And this is important because the more they know about your process of selection, especially those tables that I mentioned in the first part of the talk, is that they're going to know that this is important to you, that you're organized, that you have really put a lot of thought into this. And when I'm saying listen all of those things, those are things that I'm all of a sudden gonna start adding to my letters. Oh, and Raquel was organized. She really showed me that she thought about this. And because of that, I'm more than convinced that in addition to be a good student, Raquel is focused on graduate school. And you see that difference between, oh, Raquel was in my class. They asked me to write a letter to your program. And I think Raquel is a good student, and there you go. That sounded very different. So I want you to Just think that way. So set a time for a conversation. Share a brief summary of who you have, of why you have selected them as a recommender. I think that's always good. And I'm gonna say it, it's not easy, but you should be courageous and ask if they can write a positive, good, strong letter for you. That may seem hard, or you might feel, depending on your cultural background, maybe a little arrogant or asking too much. But let me put it this way. If you don't ask for a positive, good, strong letter, they might just write you a letter. And do you want that? I would love to see in the chat if you want just an average letter. I will be very, very curious. I'm gonna open the chat very quickly. Is it a yay or a nay? Do you want an average? So when it comes to, just thinking, oh, if I just ask for a positive, good, or strong, maybe that's what you're gonna get. But if you don't ask for it, then you might not get strong. Or let's say you ask and all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't know you enough, so I don't know if I can write a positive, good, or strong letter. And then your answer to that will be like, well, what kind of information can I share with you to help you, make this a stronger letter? So anyway, just wanted to say that. Okay. So what is the etiquette to support your recommender? I would say the key to this is organization. And I'm saying this because it's likely that you're going to ask the same person to write you multiple letters. And that is a lot, not just coming from you, but it can become a lot when the same person is doing the same thing for 10, 15, or 20 more people. Okay. So it could get to be a lot, and mistakes can happen, aka forgetting to submit a letter on time. So, my story about this is that many years ago, I had one of my students ask me for several letters that were due in a very short amount of time for a fellowship. And I really love the students. I know them very well. I think I could write a good letter. But given that there were so many, if all these links arrived to my email, it could get to be a lot. So what the student did was that they sent me a Google Doc, and you can do this in many ways. And they had the name of the application, they had the deadline, they had the link to the program so that I could remember what type of program they were applying to. They also sent me their application materials, and that made for such a sweet experience for me to write letters for this student. And in addition to just writing the letters that I already knew I was going to write for this person, I had to add to that narrative how organized, dedicated, focused this student was, even at the application process. So, guess what? All of a sudden, the whole letter of recommendation got even more elevated just because of that action from that student. So, bottom line is support your recommenders by providing them with relevant information about your application or applications. Share highlights, deadlines, and provide friendly reminders. Okay, you can remind them. It's okay. They're faculty, they're super smart, but they're also very busy and they're human beings, and things can happen. So, that said, always ask first. Please don't surprise them with a letter. Let's say that Raquel agreed to write you a letter last year. They said, I got you. I know you. I know what you've done. I'm gonna write, I'm happy to be a recommender. Just because Raquel said that last year, that doesn't mean that she doesn't need a heads up when an application is coming. And that has happened to me multiple times when I get a link or an automatic email from a foundation saying like, well, so and so listed you as a recommender, and I'm like, huh? What did just happen here? Like, I clearly love this person. I want to, but So that put the student in a very, very awkward situation because I have to call them and say, hey, what's going on? You didn't tell me anything, and I'm pretty busy, or I'm traveling. I cannot do this until 2 days from now. So always ask first. Always provide sufficient time. And if we can do it even before a month before the deadline, that would be even better. Always anticipate and facilitate the information your recommenders may need. Be clear and concise, and follow up with friendly and courteous reminders. Don't freak out. But in that sense, things can happen too, right? There can be very unexpected situations that might prevent your recommender to send a letter on time. And what happens if you find yourself there? And I hope not. I hope that you have alternate recommenders that could be helpful. Um, what if that person is traveling and they say, "Oh, Kevin, I will send this letter, but I need 24 more hours or 12 more hours until I land in the next country and I get internet." So what you can do is that you can always manage a situation by connecting with the manager of the application that you're doing. If it's a graduate application, you can talk to the graduate admissions officer, or if you're applying to a summer program, you can talk to the program director and say, listen, my letter is coming, my application was submitted, but this letter will arrive in a day. So those are examples of unexpected situations. The other one that can happen is having an unresponsive recommender. And this is less likely to happen. You may have an unresponsive recommender if you did not tell them on time, if you did not give them a heads up, if they don't know you enough, and hence they probably didn't know how much to write from you, or maybe they didn't feel like they could write a strong letter of recommendation for you. There could be so many things why some people might become unresponsive. So I don't want you to go and think the worst. I just would like for you to think about approaching them and saying, hey, Professor X, I would like to maybe let's do a 10-minute Zoom call, or kind of stop by your office. My application was submitted, but we're still waiting. If there's anything I can help you with for this letter, that's a way to sometimes manage an unresponsive recommender. So what's my take-home message about all of this? I can talk about this for hours, trust me, is that letters of recommendation complement your application materials. They oftentimes will offer a professional's point of view if your collected experiences, and that include academic, leadership, research, and personal. And I talk about personal because there's sometimes life happens, right? And because life happens, maybe you had a tough semester, because you have to probably work 3 jobs in addition to go to school. Maybe you had a bad semester, or one of your exams you did not, one of your class you had an incomplete or fail it. There are a lot of things that happen, medical issues, and when letters of recommendation can lightly touch on some of your personal attributes, like, listen, this person went through a rough patch, and you can see that reflected on their transcript for this particular semester. But let me tell you more, this person came back stronger. This person wasn't, once they switched major, they became so much more focused, and you can see that difference. So those little things that might have you feel that they're a low, actually letters of recommendation can help fill the gap and can really provide us reading the applications a better sense of who you are and how you recover from moments that we're often not proud about. And those moments happen to everybody. Please know that. And always facilitate the work of your recommenders, make it easy. And the last thing is like, I don't want you to panic if you have not done any of these things before. Okay? Don't panic, please. All I want you to know is that whatever you do starting today will make a difference. So that's pretty much like the hope and the goal of this a talk. So if you want to stay connected with me, please take a quick snapshot of this. I am going to assume that most of you are STEM scholars, but if you're not, I also want to make sure that there's space for scholars to connect with me, even if your interests are in the humanities and social sciences. In fact, I have a webinar on Wednesday with two faculty members from the humanities and social sciences. And if you want to get invited to that, today, please connect, fill the Humanities and Social Sciences QR code. With that, I'm going to say a big thank you, gracias, and I'm going to stop sharing so that I could look at the chat and answer questions. Or Raquel, even better, if you want to articulate the questions out loud, that will help me because I have not seen the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone has any questions, feel free, students, to unmute yourself. You're more than welcome to use this time to ask any questions. Let me see in the chat. Oh, okay, so we do actually have two questions. So number one is, how many times should we ask the same person for a letter of recommendation? And what would too many for you be?
Okay, no, this is
That's a
a
good
tricky
question.
question. This is a trick question. So I would say that you first have to prioritize the person you want to ask for the type of applications that you have. Let's say that you have from your list of programs, let's say you have 6 programs, but you have your top three. And your top three are your top three for a variety of reasons. I would say choose your stronger recommenders for your top programs. And I would start, I think average, maybe a faculty could write maybe 5 letters, between 3 and 5. It's 3 is average, 5 is pushing in. But I would say first start with asking them to write 3. And then ask them, by the way, I have other programs. Is it possible to, I'm trying to balance with my other recommenders, but if that is not possible, can I go back to you and ask for 2 more? So I would say it's a mix in between how long your list of applications is versus how many you want that particular person to write. And don't feel like because they say yes to the first 3, that's it. And go back and negotiate. But let them know from at the beginning, I'm gonna ask you for this 3, but I'm gonna try to balance. But if not, can I ask you for 2 more? And they could possibly say yes, right? But don't overwhelm them all at once to begin with.
Perfect. So the next one would be, what is appropriate or realistic what is a appropriate realistic way to decide what is your safe school, your reach school, your target school? What would be like a good way to determine that?
Yeah. I think, to be honest, even though I just said it, and I probably shouldn't, I don't think there's such a thing as a safe school. Because a safe school, you still have to apply and go through a process, selection process, right? So maybe I should even have said, or I don't typically utilize that term. But what is a realistic way to know which one is your target school? I just give it to you during this presentation. Those tables, if the more granular you get them to be, the more it will become clear to you what are the things that you truly like about that program. And this is a process that I always recommend to do on your own first, but then go to someone that you trust to talk this through because that person might be able to give you some perspective and ask you some very specific questions about, but what about this versus this other one? What make you put them both in the same list when you're telling me that your location is your priority, but you're saying that this one school is in New York City and the other one is California. So somebody giving you perspective might help you not get caught up on like, oh, but I included the one from California because it's so famous and maybe so it's close to Disney. And I always wanted to be close to Disney, right? Somebody can call you on that maybe there's something that you're breaking your own priority list. And I would say that's one of the most realistic ways to do it yourself, but also don't get remove the influence of other people. Maybe your best friends are like, oh, but I spent my summer in Michigan and I love it. And probably Michigan was not on your map. And now you're like being influenced by comments. And I'm not saying that that's not good. Influences can sometimes lead you to really good places, but I want you to be super critical about what makes sense to you, right? So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. Best fit and what makes sense. Like, I love that. The next question is, how long can a letter of recommendation be valid? In case you want to go to graduate school in 1 to 2 years after your bachelor's degree. So if students are taking gap time, how long does a letter of recommendation is valid?
Yeah. So your letter of recommendation always should be fresh, right? But what it might not be so recent is your relationship with that person. So if you are trying to get a letter of recommendation now with the hopes that you can reuse the letter from today, October 2024, in 2 years from now, that letter is going to be missing a lot of the things that you did in the next year or two. So what I would work on more is making sure that you maintain a relationship with that recommender, checking every 6 months or once a year, especially for summer programs. Give them updates. I do a longer version of this um, a workshop when I tell people how to network. And what you really want is just to stay in touch. Let's say that faculty member is retiring. I would increase the frequency to six every 6 months, making sure that if they're leaving the institution, you know their personal email. So always guarantee that even if you depart from the institution or your recommenders depart from the institution, to find a way to connect with them and always give them updates. Hey, during this year, I actually narrowed down my research. I did this internship, or now I'm even more focused than I was 2 years ago before I did my gap year or took some time to think about this.
Perfect. Anyone else? I'm gonna put it out there, but
Yeah.
does anybody want to ask a question and show their cameras on or
I
have their
don't want to
cameras
see your
on?
faces. And I know it's lunchtime, you're hungry, you want to go.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, one more time. We want to say thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalez Perez, for spending this time with us. And thank you, scholars, for students for being with us today. Remember, there are other sessions coming up, and the grad fair is this Thursday. So with that, I'll go ahead and close out our time. And I hope that everyone has a good rest of your week.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.